It was only a couple of weeks ago that we were sat here talking about how light Ipswich Town looked in midfield. Fast forward a couple of weeks and all of a sudden we look absolutely stacked in that department. But who starts? My name is Harvey Bell. Welcome back to the channel. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. So if you do enjoy today's video, please do subscribe and leave a like on the video down below. Before we jump into talking about our different midfielders, let me know down in the comments which midfielders you would like to see start against Manchester City. Now, in today's video, I'm not just talking about the game against Manchester City, I'm talking about the season as a whole and the midfield partnerships that I'm expecting to see across the entirety of the season. But I'm going to start by talking about the first of our midfielders, and I'm going to be talking about our newest midfielder, Jens Castuje. Now, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. I'll have to learn that one as we go along, but he signed just yesterday, 6'3" Swedish international on loan from Napoli. And I have to be honest, initially, I wasn't overly excited at the prospect of this signing on the basis that when it was first reported, we hadn't yet signed Kalvin Phillips, we were looking light in midfield, and it was initially going to be only a loan till the end of the season with no obligation or anything to buy at the end. Now, I'm feeling a lot more positive because we've got Kalvin Phillips in, who we will talk about later, but I expect to be starting. And if he does do well for us, Jens Castuje, then it looks like we do have an option to buy him at the end of the season. So all of a sudden, I'm actually quite excited by the prospect of this transfer. In terms of how much game time he's going to get, well, that depends on the other midfielders who we are going to go on and talk about. But I like the idea of this signing. He's young. He's very well liked by Napoli fans. They all say that he gets stuck in, combative. Obviously, the fact that he's 6'3" means that he's going to be very, very good in the air. You would hope a good option to have at corners, both offensively and defensively. So this on the eye looks like a good signing, and the fact that it has an obligation to buy at the end of the year if we are to stay up is good, because that means we aren't just essentially developing Napoli's player for them, and actually this is a player that, if he does well, could go on to have a long-lasting impact at Portman Road. I think longevity is very key when you're looking at signing players. So getting Castuje in on this deal, I think, is particularly good. And if the worst does happen and we go down, which I'm not for 1 minute suggesting is going to happen, it does mean that we are not left with his wage bill or having to pay Napoli a transfer fee. So it seems like a very low risk addition, and one that I think could end up proving to be really good. Now, the midfielder that is going to be starting near enough every game, and I think we can all agree on this, is the captain, Sam Morsy. He started pretty much every game that he's been fit for since he joined. He's the heartbeat of our team, keeps things going, keeps things ticking over, wins the ball back for us, scores the odd goal. I can't say enough good things about him. He's absolutely everything that you would want in a midfielder, and it encapsulates everything good that Ipswich Town have done over the last couple of seasons. For me, certainly now at the beginning of the season and throughout the season, I expect him to be starting. Who knows what happens towards the end of the season? Of course, he is getting on a little bit, so we'll have to see how he does, but he's still playing particularly well, and he hasn't showed any signs of slowing down, so there's no reason to suggest that he's going to. So for me, this video is more to talk about who I think is actually going to be partnering him, because Sam Morsy, for me, is going to be starting every single game. And that leaves Jens Castuje, Massimo Luongo, Jack Taylor and Cameron Humphreys and Kalvin Phillips all to compete for a place. So we've spoken about Jens Castuje already a little bit, but what about Massimo Luongo? Now, I wasn't at all surprised to see him start against Liverpool. I think a lot of people have said that they were surprised to see him start that game. I certainly wasn't, because across the last couple of seasons, he has partnered with Morsy. They've built that partnership there together, a massive reason why we are where we are. So I didn't expect Kieran McKenna to drop in. Ultimately, the players that got us here do deserve their chance to shine, and I do think that actually for the first half he did. I thought he got stuck in, thought he won the ball back well, and I thought he had an all-round really good first half performance. What did show in the second half is that he did get tired, and ultimately he did end up being replaced by Jack Taylor. Now, of course, Longo is getting old, so you can't begrudge him that. You can't say that it's anything he's doing wrong, because technically still a very good footballer. I think at the minute, he's going to get games. He's going to get a lot of game time under McKenna and next to Sam Morsy. But I think as the season starts to go on, he might start to be phased out a little bit. But he'll still be a massive part of the squad, still is a massive part of the squad, and somebody that is very reliable to have in the team. Jack Taylor, Again, probably a victim of the club's success in many ways. We obviously brought him in at the start of last season to gear up for the Championship after being promoted from League One. But ultimately, because Massimo Luongo played so well, Jack Taylor's chances were limited. He still made around 40 appearances in the league, which is mightily impressive, really, for somebody that didn't get many starts. He came off the bench, but he was never able to nail down a starting spot. Now, as we've spoken about with Massimo Luongo getting a little bit older, Jack Taylor seems like the perfect option to sort of take over that role. But then we've gone and signed Castuje, we've gone and signed Phillips, so it sort of feels like maybe Kieran McKenna is struggling to fit him in a little bit, but we know what Jack Taylor can offer. We know that he's one of these players that's going to run relentlessly, technically very gifted, gets us going forward. He's got a rocket of a shot on him. So he does have all the attributes needed to be a very good box-to-box midfielder. Now, it was interesting because I was reading a thread on the Those Were the Days fans forum site earlier that was talking about maybe the fact is that Ipswich just don't play in such a way that has his ideal position, because he's probably not a number 10, probably not attacking enough to be classed as a number 10, but he's also probably a little bit too attacking to be a holding midfielder. And we don't necessarily seem to play with a box-to-box midfielder as such. We seem to have two sitting and then maybe a number 10. So maybe there isn't an ideal position for him. But again, like Massimo Luongo, he's going to be a key part of the squad. He's somebody that you can always rely on, and I think he will get minutes this season. I don't think he's going to be starting, but I do think with players getting injuries, players getting suspended. Of course, we saw last season a lot of midfield rotation. So Jack Taylor is going to get minutes, if not necessarily being the partner to Sam Morsy on a regular basis. Cameron Humphreys, now, this one, again, like Jack Taylor, I use the phrase a lot, victim of the club's success. Now, League One, he started to get minutes off the bench. He was very, very impressive. He even got a couple of starts. I remember him scoring on the 2nd of January at Lincoln away. So he was a good player and he really started to develop. And in fact, he became a key part of that League One promotion winning squad. He's a very technically gifted player, but I don't think he's going to get many minutes this season. I think he is going to go out on loan. I think he's going to go out on loan to the Championship, if not a top end League One club. So I don't expect him to be partnering Sam Morsy this year, which leaves Kalvin Phillips. I think Kalvin Phillips is going to be the starting midfielder next to Sam Morsy, not against Manchester City, because Phillips is obviously on loan from Manchester City, so can't play against his parent club. But ultimately, this is a midfielder who has played in the final of the Euros. He's got over 30 international appearances for England. He's played for Manchester City, West Ham and Leeds, all in the Premier League. We talk a lot about Premier League experience. And of course, Town are going to be paying Kalvin Phillips significant wages. They're not paying all of that money for him to come and sit on the bench. This is a player that wants to get his career back on track. This is a player that had the option to go to Fulham or Everton, but has chosen to come to Ipswich Town to play under Kieran McKenna, get his career back on track, and sort of see where it goes from there. So I feel like Morsy and Kalvin Phillips in that double pivot will be a really exciting proposition, and that is the midfield partnership that I do expect to play. And I'm excited by it. Of course, Kalvin Phillips didn't get any minutes against Liverpool, so that debut is still to come, but ultimately we know what we're getting. We had a Leeds fan on last week, so go back and watch that if you haven't already. But you're going to be getting a player that gets stuck in, wins the ball back. He looks like he's got a really good passing range as well. I think he does a bit of everything, which is really good to see. I said earlier about Jack Taylor not being able to necessarily play the number 10 or the holding role. I think Phillips does a bit of it all. And I do just think that we've not brought him in to sit on the bench, and he will be partnering Sam Morsy. So for me, the starting partnership is Sam Morsy and Kalvin Phillips. I'll be interested to know what you all think. So do go down into the comments. Let me know what you think of our midfielders. Let me know who you think the starting partnership is going to be. But what I will say, in fact, is that I genuinely do believe that every single one of our midfielders is very talented. Sam Morsy, as I've said, brilliant. Massimo Luongo, a massive part of our club's success, still going to play a massive role this season. Jack Taylor, so technically gifted, but just a victim of the club's success in the sense that he hasn't necessarily been able to break into the first team because of how well everybody else has been playing. Kalvin Phillips, gone over it, England international. Jens Castuje, on loan from Napoli. He's been playing in the top flight of Italy. You don't get to that level without being a good footballer. Interested to see what comes from him. Cameron Humphreys, again, like Massimo Luongo, a key part of our success. But I do think with his age and relative inexperience, it is going to be a loan for him this season. But it really excited to see what he does over the span of his career, because I think he could be a really big player for Ipswich Town in the future. So that's my verdict. As I say, let me know down in the comments. Otherwise, that is about it from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.